All right, guys, this has been a little while in coming. I wanted to review both of these whiskeys and try this out. This is something I drink regularly. I don't really recall the Jameson as well. It's been sitting for a little while. The Bushmills I drink on the regular, and they're pretty standard Irish whiskeys. One of the things I did find out is I thought when I started drinking whiskey, it would be crazy scotches. That was what I was first kind of introduced to. I started getting into like smoky, peaty stuff like Lafroig, single malts, and much like beer, my tastes and tequila, my tastes went more simple. They went towards blancos, they went towards lagers, pilsners, lighter, crisp beers. I find that the same thing has essentially happened with whiskey as well. I kind of, not that I looked down on, but I didn't think of Irish whiskey as being all that particularly great compared to other, single malts and things like that from Scotland. But it all depends on what you like. And I encourage you to explore, figure out what your tastes are, what works for you. I did a review of Cimarron tequila, and I think I rated it as okay. But I don't particularly like the bubblegum notes. And that's just one thing for me. When I have various tequilas with that bubblegum note, I don't really care for that usually. So we're going to go ahead and pour each of these, get a good taste on them. And I remember liking both of these when I had them. I'm going to get just enough to get a good taste on each. The Jameson was particularly nice. Most people know these. It's not that fancy. Something that's available mostly everywhere. And then the Bushmills, if you can't tell that I like it, I buy by the handle. It's not even just like the small bottle, because I drink enough of this that it's Irish whiskey. These two both, they're really, really nice to have before you have a beer. It's one of the reasons I think I like them so much. I don't find them to be, I don't know, do I want to say challenging on my palate? Do I want to say that it's like, I'm definitely not working through peat. I'm not working through, what do you call a 1,000-year-old Irishman? Peat. It's this thing where these are lighter. There are some woody, like oak notes, but the Irish whiskeys that I've had, and this will probably get into bourbon as well. I like the sour mash that I've had. I didn't know if I would like it because it's corn based, and I find that it it's so wide. It's like saying beer. It's like, but there's stout and pilsners and lagers. The same thing happens with whiskeys. When you're talking about bourbon and scotch and Irish whiskey in different categories, how the alcohol is treated, what it's made from, what it's aged in, like changes the entire structure of what you're dealing with. I think I'm going to reverse this for a second. I think I'm actually going to go into the Bushmills first. So I get alcohol on the nose, and I think because of the color, it makes me those copper pot stills, which I assume is what they use, maybe not. I'm also not going to pull up their website in this case. I just thought these are such large brands. I even looked at Jameson's briefly, and it's like, it's not. So it's very light, wispy, kind of a oak alcohol on the nose. Very sort of a very simple chord between like maybe light sweetness, a little bit of oak, a little bit of alcohol. And then let's deal with the Jamesons and compare it side by side just on the nose. Deeper, a little more rich, a little more leather coming out. This is the Bushmills is lighter. It's a little bit more on the top. The Jamesons is a little deeper and a little darker in a sense. I get some of the same notes, some things that are similar, but there's a deeper kind of leather deeper, maybe tannins. I don't know if that's the right word. There's a little bit more of a floral. It's like leather and flowers got together. Not like perfume. It's not. It's natural. It doesn't feel fake in any way. Not that I'm an expert on perfume, by the way. It's got a deeper, rich heather. I don't know why I want to say that, but it's like it's more evocative in some sense. This it's lighter, punches me just a little bit. It's more sharp. This is a little bit more broad. So let's go ahead and try the Bushmills out. See what I can get here. Camera, why do you keep doing that to me? There's all these aromatic notes and a little punch of alcohol, and then it's very like crisp, light on my palate. Maybe a little bit of honey. You can also see if you look at the color, the Jameson's is in a green bottle. I don't think it matters too much for whiskey. I don't think light degrades it the same way it does like wine, for instance. But you can see that excuse me, you can see that this right here, the Jameson, is a little darker in color. Yeah, slightly, probably a little bit more oak or whatever's involved in that. Oh, wow. So it's like, and I wanted to compare them side by side because they're both Irish whiskeys. So now this is deeper. It feels even a little like, for some reason, it's making me think of Johnny Walker. This is a little darker, a little more something going on. It's a little more challenging than the Bushmills. Thinking of like being in my father's closet, leather belts. Yeah. The Jameson is more fragrant. Um, the Bushmills is less challenging on my palate. I want to say flat, but it's not bad. It's just not quite as complex as this. I mean, can you imagine when we talk about reviews, and I'll probably go over this because I'll probably, just like poker, I'll kind of learn as I go. Can you imagine comparing like Bushmills to a single malt scotch? It's like the single malt scotch can be, because they're all different, but could be completely overwhelming. When I say this is more challenging, it's just it's got more nuance to its flavors than the Bushmills does. It also greatly depends, like would I, for instance, in an American bar, would I shoot scotch? No, that's something you sip on, right? Bushmills, nah. If I'm having friends over and we want a whiskey and a beer, I'm very likely to just pour a shot of Bushmills and be good. Now, it all depends on what you like, how you want to drink it. I don't normally drink these as snifters. I use another glass for that. Um, but I had two glasses that were at least similar to be able to do this tasting, and I wanted to be able to have it in the same um, glass because I didn't want that to affect my review in any way. Just light, like honey and leather. Maybe brown sugar and leather. more light, um, more surface area, more. Um, it's less deep. It's not as dark. It's not as rich. It would almost be like if you were listening to music. It's not as much bass. It's more high notes. So I think if I'm just comparing these two, now I'm very happy that I make enough income that I can afford both. Doesn't matter. I'm happy that when I'm reviewing tequilas, the wonderful people of Mexico who have my corazon, I can afford to buy tequilas from different regions and try them. I'm very thankful that I'm, making enough income that I can afford to drink the things that I like. Try to focus on the things that I enjoy the most. It's a wonderful part of my own self care. Yes, I said it. And you're like, Robert, you're an alcoholic. No, it's part of my self care. It's my medicine. It's just wonderful to be able to have, choices. Like I'm able to sample these different drinks and be able to compare and contrast. I do think if you're starting out, these are both good whiskeys to try. And I think as Irish whiskeys generally, they're not quite as challenging on the palate. I think that the Jameson is a little bit more floral, a little deeper and more rich. The Bushmills is a little bit more topical, but man, either of these, if you serve these, I'm fine. I'm never going to complain. I'm never going to look down on it or think, this is beneath me. Certainly, if I continue to grow and I had focus on certain kinds of whiskey or single malts or, this and that, I could become a snob very easily. But I just don't see anything about either of these two that isn't just great. I think they're both great starter whiskeys if you're trying to deal with Irish whiskey and kind of get a flavor profile. I have not delved extensively into different kinds of whiskey, both in the United States, meaning bourbon primarily, and then also Irish whiskeys, Scotch whiskeys. Things change. The stuff that it's made of, how it's aged, how it's distilled, all those things make a difference. Both of these are top notch. I think at the moment, if I was going to say on its own, if I was just going to sit down and I was just going to enjoy the whiskey on its own, I would probably go with the Jamesons. Now, that is not to say that I do not like the Bushmills. I think if I was hanging out with people who just didn't particularly care, I'd probably get a handle of Bushmills, pour them a shot, and we'll have a beer after. I just think that the Bushmills is a little bit less challenging, but overall, these are both really solid Irish whiskeys, and I'm very thankful that I can afford both. You guys have a great one, and I'll see you again on Salud with Robert Gardner.